Frost yesterday. He said, camp manager status was still kind of TBD. He was feeling some back pain. Has he been able to practice this week?
I mean, the TBD, that's pretty much where Coach Frost left it. So that's where we're at. We still got a little time to figure it out.
Okay. Well, what did you like, I guess, last week about Taven coming in? It was an uncertain situation. There was a lot of weather delay. You guys weren't sure at first what happened to camp. Just how did you like him coming in and kind of taking control, especially by the fourth quarter?
Yeah, it was cool to see Tay come in and react. He was ready to play, obviously. He had a good week of practice. But, yeah, the moment wasn't too big for him, and he executed when we needed to, made some really nice throws, and ran the offense pretty well, obviously being first game. There's a bunch of things that you expect from game one, and the biggest difference that you're going to make in relationship to getting better is going to be from game one to game two. But, yeah, it was good to see Tay go out there, and he obviously made some plays, and he did a good job. He got the ball where it needed to be and took care of the ball. There were some scary moments there, but he did overall handled the offense really well and came out with the win. So obviously going to be some stuff that we're going to clean up, and we have already cleaned up on tape.
When you look at the offense, it seemed the first quarter sputter a little. We had long drives, but you weren't able to finish those off. Were you pleased with how that looked, or do you feel like the tempo needs to pick up or something like that?
Yeah.
You need to see more from that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately there's a ton of different ways to attack that, but big picture, as you pointed out, we did sustain some long drives, which great. That's nice to see. Overcoming some of the things that need to be cleaned up from game one, we were able to do that at times, but when you have to put with penalties and there was like a 20-play drive together with no points, it's not acceptable. And we explained that to the guys, and I think they understand that we have to be more explosive. And you can't shoot yourself in the foot. Our big coaching points to these guys is 1, pad level has to come down. 2, eliminate the self-inflicted. It's hard to go on 20-play drives. And then 3, connect on your shots. You can clean up a mistake by being explosive. And at times we showed the ability to do that, but there are a couple things that are just inches away, and this is a game of inches that we have to connect on. It's always good when you put a long drive together, but you have to come up with some points. We want to score touchdowns.
Coach Frost mentioned that Taven had a different kind of fire lit under him when he heard the news that Cam Fancher was being announced as starter. He said that he hopes to see that fire more consistently throughout him, especially off the field, off game time, during practice. Do you see that kind of fire that was lit?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more from what I saw from Tay. There seemed to be a new sense of urgency when we announced Cam as the starter. So, new sense of urgency. He just needs to be able to sustain that. He did a really good job in the week, like I mentioned earlier, in the prep. So no one batted an eye when he went in. Obviously tight competition battle to begin with. Those two guys they're good friends and they help each other out. So it's good to see that those guys are both competing and Tay I think he's going to carry over and keep that same passion. That's what we're excited to see.
You just talked about progress from week 1 to week 2. What more do you need to see from the offensive line this week?
Like I mentioned earlier, the big thing that we talked about, and believe me, it's not just the offensive line, it's the whole offense in general, pad level, coming off and finishing blocks, playing through the echo of the whistle, which we stress that. And, for a lot of these guys with not a ton of experience, first game, I believe that this is going to be as good tape to watch and it's a good experience to have, and we got to carry over into next week and beyond.
How much is it a lot of new guys still trying to figure each other out?
I don't want to just use that as the crutch, saying, okay, it's just new guys. That's just in general. We need to clean up our pad level. Hard to say, being year one and this is the first game. I'm not quite sure, if it's just because this was the first one or the weather delay or, some of the unscouted looks because it's game one. Ultimately, we need to be better in critical situations. What was cool to see when it came down to winning the football game, that's when we executed our best. So we just need to be able to sustain that for 4 quarters and not just spotty.
The difference for week 2 when your week 2 opponent now has current tape on you.
Yeah, big difference. Obviously, you got a little bit more firm feet on the stuff that you implement in the game plan. So you got a better idea in relationship to the looks that you can give the guys throughout the course of the week. But I will say this, it is still only week 2, so there's no rule. I actually checked the rule book. They're allowed to change. So we'll be prepared for those things, and we got to be able to have faster reactions when things aren't windshield wiper clean. Like the reality is the game of football is a lot about executing your assignment, having the detail, but then the game changes, we need to be able to react. And I think that's an area that will grow a bunch from week 1 to week 2.
Coach, I remember back during fall camp Coach Frost mentioned how with each of the options at quarterback, the offense would kind of shift a little bit or be a little bit different depending on who was at the helm. What was the shift like going from Cam to Taven, and what was kind of different about each guy taking the helm and making that switch?
Yeah, to your point, each one of our quarterbacks, just like each one of the guys on offense, probably has a skill set that might lean one way or the other into the things that they're good at. Between Cam and Tay, obviously they're pretty similar. I mean, Tay's got a lot of experience doing some of the things that we executed pretty well when he was in the game. It doesn't change the game plan completely, but you obviously lean towards maybe a different third down and long call with a certain quarterback that they're more comfortable with. And we ask the quarterbacks each week towards the end of the week, okay, what are your favorite calls? If it's the game on the line, what call do you like? And, I think that we're just mindful of those things, and we take notes on what they feel comfortable with. And quite honestly, sometimes it seems like it's a little bit random in relationship to maybe the rep that they got in practice and they executed it. So go figure, they like that play, But we feel good about all our quarterbacks being able to operate our system. But Tay does have a pretty good skill set of being able to rip the ball down the field.
Dylan Wade led your team in receiving yards. He had the touchdown in the fourth quarter. Beyond the box score, what did you like about his performance this debut?
Yeah, it was good to see D. Wade made some nice plays when he was targeted. He was able to come up with the football. He's a pretty special athlete. He's a tight end that can pull himself open. He can create separation for himself. He played a bunch of snaps. It was well over 60. That's probably at the max of what we want him playing in a game. Because we got some other guys that could potentially take some of those reps off of him. But in the situation that we were in, we were going to go with the guys that had some fluidity into the game and kind of dialed in. But yeah, it was good to see him. D. Wade make some plays in the critical moments. Obviously, we just need to be a little bit more consistent. And I'm not just talking about D. Wade. I'm talking about all of our skill guys, all our offensive line and quarterbacks.
On that touchdown, Miles Montgomery had the block downfield. What was kind of the reaction of you guys as coaches and seeing that after the fact and see your running back, spring him downfield?
Yeah, I mean, you just pull up the tape on 22, and obviously none of us are perfect, and he obviously had some plays that he'd like back. But Miles, I mean, it's 100% all the time. And that's been really cool to see. And I think the best thing about that is his teammates being able to see that on tape. And we showed the entire offense, okay, see this play. Obviously, it's a big-time play by the quarterback and D. Wade, but look at what the effort looks like where 22 is playing through the echo with a whistle, selfless. And we want to see more of that. And it's not like the guys are neglecting to do that. We just need to get those guys an opportunities to finish the play.
Coach, Frost had said before the first game that there was potential that all quarterbacks could see the field. Obviously, we saw that with Fancher go down with an injury. Was that always the plan on Saturday last week? And then for this week, is there a plan in place to get one, maybe two quarterbacks on the field?
Listen, I mean, with some things up in the air right now, a little bit TBD on that. But the reality is we do feel good about the quarterbacks that we have. You got to understand the flow of game. I'm big on this, undersell, over-deliver. Not going to go into a room and say, like, hey, you're for sure playing this number of snaps, because there's so many things that we can't control as coaches. The game's going to go the way the game goes, so we got to be mindful of that. But what we do tell the guys, not just quarterbacks, like, hey, you got to stay ready so you don't have to get ready, period.
A lot of guys got touches, wide receivers. What did you see from that group?
Yeah, that's one thing I really like to see. I really enjoyed seeing the ball get spread around. I mean, that means you got a balanced offense, and the wide receivers, like, they competed. They went up and they fought for the balls when they were in the air. It was good to see those guys develop some continuity with both quarterbacks that were in. And for some of these guys, it's just not a ton of experience. I mean, Wade and Charles is a true freshman. He made a big-time catch on a third down and long in a critical situation, so that was good. I believe that was a play that extended a drive out that we scored on. So it's really good to see those guys develop some confidence in the first game.
What did they show you differently than you had seen from them in practice?
I would say there's not really like anything that we haven't seen. It was just a little bit more consistent than – listen, you get a lot of reps in practice, and you can't take those for granted, but in practice is a little bit different than the game. Your opportunities are going to be way more minimized. There's just less plays. I tell the guys all the time it's going to be between 65 and 80 plays in the game. You might get targeted on 3 of those. What are you going to do with those opportunities? And I did think all of the skill, particularly wide receivers, they maximize their opportunities.
Obviously not a ton of playing time, but how did you evaluate Cam Fancher's performance through the first quarter, maybe some areas for improvement?
Yeah, for him, it was also limited. I mean, he was a part of a drive and a half. And obviously we took the shot on the first play and we missed that. We'd all like to have that one back, just to get a redo on that, but that's not how the game works. So it's not like he went out and played bad. I mean, there was just a handful of little small details that you would kind of expect from game one, but the expectation is that we're perfect, even though we're not going to always achieve that. And I think that, he played pretty good, but pretty good, okay. That's not good enough, so we're working to get better there.
What was your evaluation of the offensive line and the push that they got in the first game, and where would you like to see them improve going forward?
Yeah, kind of like what we talked about earlier. Pad level is a big one. Finishing plays to the echo of the whistle, straining to make your block work. I mean, ultimately, it's not always going to be, like I said earlier, windshield wiper clean. This is exactly the way the double team looked on scout team. It's not going to be that way because the other team that we're playing, they're good too. They're going to have a plan. They're going to try to muddy things up. So what you would like to see is us to have a little bit faster reactions and stay on blocks and get movement. And, we can't reduce the game down to just be about that. It's more than that. There's technique and there's fundamentals. But on the other side, if it comes down to blocking and tackling, we just got to be a little bit better.
Coach, obviously the rain delay threw off the flow of the game. How did you see your offense's comfort level improve as the game progressed?
Yeah, I mean, that's a game where you wish that you had 4 more quarters so that we can continue to get some continuity and get in a rhythm. That's all game ones. It was good to finally see us break through and obviously have that scoring drive to take the lead. So ultimately, we got more football to play. We're going to continue to practice those things. And now my hope is, okay, now that we've played a game, the practice becomes more of a reality for these guys who know what to expect. And when we get into a game, we'll be able to settle in a little faster.
Three drives in the fourth quarter. You guys scored 2 touchdowns, got into field goal range. What do you feel like you can build upon from there and carry over? Was there a rhythm or some sort of things you found in that fourth quarter specifically that can be then you carry over the next week?
Yeah, I think just like what you said, I mean, just organically getting into a rhythm because we've played together and we believe together and we've had some success. Hard to say like what exactly to pinpoint is going to help that continuity. I think it just comes down to confidence and the belief. And yeah, the fourth quarter was a good example of us moving the football. We moved the ball pretty good. I think we had 1 3 and out the whole game. It's just now it's going to come down to finish.
Yeah, I think number one, you start with winning a football game, and you never want to minimize that. And that's the number one goal every single week. Hold the opponent to 1 less point than we score, and so thrilled to be 1-0. It's also a good reminder, what defines a big game. Lose it, you find out how big it is, type of thing. And so it's a good reminder as a young program as we try to build this thing that wins are hard to come by, and it never gets easy. And so we certainly was pleased that way. And there's a lot of things you got to clean up, and that was going to happen win, lose, or draw. And so, start that process, as quickly as this past Friday, and obviously back on the grass, physically today. And but anytime you ask a coach, you think about the bad plays. You just do. You default to that and say, how can we let some of those things happen? And so, got to clean those things up, but give the guys credit for fighting and winning the game in the fourth quarter.
What were some areas that you were pleased with, I guess, in the game, and what were some areas maybe you said you'd clean up, but what were some areas that really stuck out that you really need to fix going into?
Yeah, I thought effort was good. I don't think it was elite. And the minute you pat yourself on the back for having good effort, you're going to remind yourself that that's expected. But I thought we ran. I thought that gave us a chance. I thought we tackled for a game one. The combination of those two things allowed us to get stops and allowed some plays that maybe sprung a leak, but didn't turn into fatals because we knocked it down, as we like to say, and lived to play the next down. They don't get points for first downs. And so I thought, generally speaking, we did a nice job of that, and I think that'd be one to highlight. One explosive is too many, and there's a couple examples, one from a schematic standpoint, where we didn't do a very good job handling a formation in the boundary that we got to get cleaned up. And then, a couple other instances where, and one of the conversations we had with the guys was, you can't wait for Saturday for it to become real. And I mean the job description. If we give you a progression and we see a play and a productive play attached to that job description, otherwise we give you a different job description. And so there's several instances of, you watch it on video, and this is a direct quote from a player to a coach. It's basically saying, "Oh, that's what you were talking about." There's several of those moments, whether it's spilling a guard or leveraging a puller or a number of different things, most specific to the run game. And so one of the messages, you can't wait for Saturdays for it to become real. Otherwise, you'll just be a week behind every single time. And so lessons lessons along the way. And probably my biggest frustration, I don't think we had a chance to play enough guys, and that has nothing to do with scoreboard. I think that has everything to do with preparation. And guys attacking the work week and saying, Coach, you need to put me in the game. We'll be a better football team if you do. Maybe in too many instances, just expecting that our job as coaches is to be friendly and find you a role. No, you have to earn a role, and so that's something that's we'll be better the more guys we get a chance to play.
Coach, you mentioned effort. Talk about the big defensive stop on 4th down by Jaden Williams.
Yeah, it's just sometimes tempo is a double-edged sword from an offensive standpoint. Is there's so much chaos. Yeah, we can't get into the particular alignment and the adjustments we'd like to get into, but then you run the ball right into on an unblocked human. But you still have to make the play, and so that's one of those guys. One of the things we talk about is empty hands of the quarterback. Once you see empty hands of the quarterback, you put your foot in the ground. It takes 11 guys to stop the run. Now, that's the extreme of the extreme. But I think it also speaks to Jay Will and just his. It's building over time. He's only been with us obviously since fall camp. He wasn't with us in the spring, but you just kind of look at it through the. Man, we kind of like having him in the game and kind of expect him to do something. And that was, to put it mildly, a pretty big play.
How do you evaluate the play of your defensive line and the pressure you got at Jackson State?
Yeah, not much in the way of drop back game, and so sometimes the first thing you look at is sacks, and we want more, and so we got to find a way to be more disruptive in the backfield, and we expect to sack the quarterback more. Now again, on that same note, they get a vote in terms of what those types of plays are. So it wasn't a big drop back game in terms of what they did, and so maybe not as many opportunities as you can have on a typical Saturday. I saw there was a level of disruption again. I think from a production standpoint, we expect to have more. We expect to have more negative plays, more 0-yard gains, and I think that kind of speaks to the seeing a play at the end of the progression that we give you. I'm in the A gap, cool, but I want to make a play through the A gap. I'm in the C gap. All right, you're where you need to be. That's step one. Can I go make a play in the C gap? And that's not just the defensive front, obviously, but I think we can find more production from that group overall. I think they were solid, but I think their expectations for themselves, I think our expectations are a little bit higher. And you could circle back and say that's put them in a better position from a coaching standpoint too. So those are obviously things we'll look at.
Coach Frost, talk about the resiliency of the defense on Thursday. Just what was your view of that whole situation? How do you nurture that going forward while also doing some of those improvements with that?
Yeah, I mean, you get wrapped up in the X's and O's, so often on the plus side or the frustrating side as well. I think maybe not every coach, but certainly for me and this coaching staff, we talk about effort so much, and we talk about resiliency. We talk about adversity not being a part of the game. We talk about adversity is the game. If you can't handle adversity, you can't be a football player. It's like if you can't strike out in baseball, you got to find a different sport. If you can't handle giving up a hit as a pitcher, you can't play the game. You're not allowed to do it. And so, if football's that way, if you can't handle the scoreboard not being exactly what you want it to be, then there's another life for you. And so, and that sounds dramatic, but it's the truth. And so that's just something we're trying. Again, because there's so much turnover in college football, you always you feel like you're a first-year program all the time, because you're talking to new guys, but there's still just as a first-year program constantly trying to implement in that. And it's one thing to say, and it's another thing for the guys to go do it. And so that's one step in the right direction. It's one time checking the box. Okay, we found a way through certain levels of adversity and had a chance. 2-minute drive at the end of the half, blocked a field goal. 2-minute drive at the end of the game, had a chance to kind of take away to win the football game. So all those things you draw from, and obviously it's easier to draw from when you get a win than the other side.
As the game wore on, Jack State did quite a number of different things. They shifted tempo on you. They checked out a backup quarterback and wide receiver. What does he think it says about your defense that they were able to adjust and adapt to so many situations for a first-time outing?
Yeah, and I think credit goes to the guys, and that's a really good point. And I should have brought it up. Is we didn't get the free pass week one where the offense behaved and it just ran a small package and a couple formations, or leaned on the particular play or formation group or personnel grouping. We saw a lot of stuff. Now the advantage is we see a lot of stuff on a day in and day out basis. So fall camp prepared us for that, and that's got to be something that we talk about each week. You got to be problem solvers. You got to be able to handle whatever an offense gives you, whether or not it was part of the week of preparation, and we got to make sure that we have an answer for it. And sometimes you don't have to have an answer for it, but you got to you got to believe that you do, because 11 dudes are all doing the same thing. We say if you're all wrong, you're all right, and so that's kind of speaks to that a little bit. But I was pleased if you could, it's scary to say as a coach, because you just want to find a way to get a win. So it's hard to say we want adversity, right? We're talking about that, or we want a million different formations thrown at us, and you want 2-minute drives at the half. But if you could script it and it says a W at the end of it, you want all that. Specifically early on in the season, the non-conference slate. Always careful what you wish for, but I was pleased with that. I give the guys credit. There wasn't much panic in that way.
Coach, Jacksonville State's quarterback presented challenges with his ability to move. How would you assess your team's performance in handling that?
I think okay. I think, some of the window dressing or however you want to describe. Sometimes I joke like it's a rave. The guy's going in motion and pullers and everything else, and that just really tests you from a discipline standpoint. The ones that we didn't handle stick out. Now, on a positive thing, they didn't turn into fatal. We knocked him down, and so never allowed him to truly get that, explosive run and flip the field or chase after him and, ultimately lead to a bunch of points on the other side. So I thought we handled it okay. Would probably be, and just okay is not okay type of thing. But that's part of the reality. Is most weeks, anymore it's rare to see a quarterback that can't hurt you with their feet. And so he did a nice job of finding some creases and running hard.
How does week 1 and week 2 change when the week 2 opponent now has tape on you, what you guys did?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Week 1, with all the different formations, we had no idea what they were going to do. And then now we have one game study, and you're still kind of in the archives from a coaching standpoint. But again, it's a lot more same as in terms of the conversation week 1 to week 2, just because it's a new staff and kind of all the conversations we had a week ago. They've obviously have a one game study on us, and they'll pair that with, the film that they watched, based on, our history and coaches and where we've been and all those things. And so you recognize that. And then very quickly, that's just the norm. They're going to have a pretty good study on you. You're going to have a pretty good study on them. And in the end, you got to run, you got to hit, you got to change the math when the math's not in your favor and they call the perfect play and, play with effort and play physical. And no, it's a little bit different, but in this particular instance, it's probably a little bit closer just simply because if we're not careful, we're going to take too much stock in one game and one video. They can do a lot more than just what they showed last week.
What do you look at a guy like Jaden Bellamy, his performance, able to step up and make an interception? What did you like from him, and what have you seen from, I guess, in camps leading into this?
Yeah, just plays very confident. And, that's one of those positions. Obviously, you want confidence at every level of your defense, but certainly a corner, a guy that just doesn't seem like the ball being in the air surprises him. And sometimes one of your biggest frustrations as a coach, especially a secondary coach, is when a defensive back is surprised when the ball's thrown in his zone or to his man. I mean that's the job description is prevent those individuals from coming down. You're not going to win. Every one of those matchups, but he just has a tendency to win more than he loses. I mean, in our time, and obviously we care about games, I get it, but just in going back to spring and then our time around him. And so, kind of expect him to continue to do that, and he needs to. He's going to continue to be challenged over the course of the year, and one of the things that you have to play in this day and age, you got to play some semblance of man coverage, matchup principles, and stuff like that. And so, they're going to challenge you on the back end, and so it was good to see him, make a couple plays for us. One on a vertical shot on a height discrepancy to be fair, and then obviously come down with the play at the end.
How would you evaluate the play of your linebackers? And if Lewis can't go in the first half, I know you guys were trying to appeal the target
Sure.
ball. How will you adjust?
Yeah, I think overall you probably be a B. I mean, I think there was some some meat left on the bone type of thing, probably like every level of the defense where there was a missed opportunity if we just trusted some layer of coaching. And you got to be careful as a coach. It's like, well, if you just do it, you know, kind of the snarky, if you just do what we told you to do, you'd have done X, Y, and Z. And really trying to not say that, but at the same token is there's a reason we told you to, you know, there's a progression attached to certain plays. And so I think they can play better. I think we get some more production from the unit. They played hard, which gives you an excitement level moving forward. And that's another position where we need to play more guys, regardless of, you know, targeting calls and stuff like that. You know, J-Mac's got to play more. Kyle's got to play more. And you know, it's, you know, football's not like baseball where the more at bats you have a tendency to get better. You know, the more at bats you have a tendency to lose a step at times. And so the more guys we can play, I think that's going to help that room. And we think, you know, specific to that room, Coach Onofre, one, does a great job with them, but two, I think we have some guys that we can put in a game and have some production.
How did you use the weather delay? Did you work right through it, look at film from
Yeah.
what had been played?
Yeah, you know, the double-edged sword of the iPad is it's good because you get a chance to watch it. You know, you watched it at the end of the series, and then with a weather delay, you got the same iPad, and then, you know, you watch it again, and then you watch it again because you got nothing else to do. And so, well, whatever, I don't know, it was like 15 or 20 plays or what we had before the delay. I mean, we've never watched, you know, 20 plays of football more than, you know, those ones during the delay, and eventually had to rip the iPads away from the guys because those plays are done and we got to move on and all that stuff. But no, it's probably pretty embarrassing if you had a video of everybody just laying around the locker room and stuff like that. There ain't much to do in those moments. You know, grab a snack, hydrate, grab another snack, hydrate more, and try to you know, level up once they give us the go-ahead to go, which the guys handled pretty well, which you forget about. You know, that's kind of part of it, and a little adversity week one, and they responded to that too.
We talked about Jaden yesterday. Have you gotten your Jaden straight in the secondary? There's a lot of Jadens that keep
A lot of
track
Jadens. A lot of Jadens, yeah. We got to rectify that next year as we look at transfers.
All right, thanks, Alex.